I'm very pleased to be here to be able to speak to you today about the post-diagnostic pilot project that I currently manage in Scotland. The project is called the Facing Dementia Together project, so the same as the title for the conference. It's one of 3 post-diagnostic support pilot projects that are funded by the Scottish Government until March next year. And our project has now been running for 18 months. And it's staffed by myself and a full-time project worker, so it's quite a small project. Dementia is a priority for the Scottish Government, which launched its first National Dementia Strategy in June this year. There are approximately 71,000 people currently living with dementia in Scotland, and this number is expected to double over the next 25 years. So demand for support services is set to grow dramatically. Recognising the current systems of health and social care will be unable to cope with this increased demand, the Scottish Government is driving forward a reform agenda that looks at fundamentally transforming the way in which supports for people with dementia and their families are designed and funded. The National Dementia Strategy focuses on 2 main key areas, one of which is improving support for people after receiving a diagnosis, and the other is general hospital care for people with dementia. The strategy recognised that there's currently little support available for people in the period of time following diagnosis. And with pressure on social care services, it means that currently people would not normally receive support until their needs are quite high, usually when there's a crisis. So this means that people with dementia and their families are being denied the opportunity to come to terms with the illness, to understand their symptoms, to find ways of managing those symptoms, and crucially, to make decisions planning ahead for the future. People with dementia and their carers, they need that support early on when the person still has capacity to make crucial decisions and to decide how they would like to be supported in the future. In addition, the services offered sometimes appear uniform and inflexible, and they don't always meet the needs of the person or the wishes of the person with dementia. What is often needed is better support for a person's existing internal systems of support, rather than something that will completely replace it. We believe this will help improve people's quality of life, as well as prolong the period in which people are able to live independently with the support of family and friends. The Scottish Government has recently consulted on both a draft national self-directed support strategy and on proposals for a self-directed support bill, which will provide legislative framework for more people to be able to direct their own support, so giving more choice, more flexibility, and putting the person with dementia and their family key to having the control of the supports that they require. In terms of who can be referred to the project, crucially, the person has to have had a recent diagnosis in an early stage. We work with people of all ages and all types of dementia, and we cover 2 geographical areas that sit next to one another. And there's areas of wealth and areas of deprivation within those 2 areas. Although the referrals are for the person with dementia, it's inevitable in supporting the person that we end up supporting the person's family and support structures as well. So what kind of supports do we offer? Well, we provide a range of support depending on the person's needs. And for some people, they might just need some low-key support, help with something very specific. For other people, they'll be requiring more intensive package of support. We provide information to people about dementia, about services that might be of use to them, about legal and financial matters, and about strategies for coping with the difficulties that they face every day. We offer an opportunity for people to have emotional support, practical support, and also for peer support. We're able to signpost people to other organisations and services that might be helpful. Crucially, we're all about trying to help the person to stay connected to their friends, family, and stay connected within their local communities, to keep on living the life that they've always had and the things that are important to them. In the project, we've been adapting use of person-centred planning tools to help people to plan ahead for the sort of life that they would want and the supports that would involve. And we're also informing people about self-directed support as an alternative to the traditional services that people would be offered. So again, that's about giving people far much choice and control of what supports they require. In terms of outcomes, we would hope that the people with dementia and their family members would be better informed, that they would be better equipped to manage the challenges of living with dementia, that they'd be able to continue to lead full and active lives independently, that they would have the financial and legal arrangements in place for the future, and that ultimately they would have a lot more control of the support. We hope from that would help to increase people's confidence in their self-esteem, reduce their feelings of isolation, and improve their mental well-being. The project is being independently evaluated by Dementia Services Development Centre at Stirling University, and they're going to track people over a period of a year following diagnosis to see what difference getting some support from the project makes to people's quality of life, to their access to services, and to their independence and choice. We recently ran a series of 6 workshops, and we had 9 people with dementia and 8 family members attended those workshops. So this is a couple of photographs from one of the sessions, and if you look closely, you'll recognise James McKillop in the photograph on the left-hand side. James sits on our steering group, but we also invited him and another person from the Scottish Dementia Working Group to come to talk to the group about their experiences of life with dementia and things that have helped them to continue to have a good life. That was a very inspiring session for people, and I think it challenged some of their preconceived notions about what dementia might mean for them. We provide other less formal, more relaxed opportunities for peer support. So these photographs have been taken last December at a Christmas dinner that we had for people involved with the project. We also provide a monthly drop-in cafe, and that's quite a good way of introducing people to meet other people that are in the same boat as themselves. And that seems to really help people to get their confidence back. We've maybe found people that have started to withdraw from seeing friends and doing things. And overwhelmingly, they'll say that coming to the drop-in really does help them to feel more confident because they know that everybody understands and they feel accepted. I just wanted to quote from 2 people with dementia on the difference the project has made to them. So Peter recently attended the workshops and said, "It has changed my outlook. The minute I was told it was like a death sentence. Coming here, I realise it's not like that at all. I appreciate coming along and talking to other people and realising there are a lot of people in the same boat. It has helped me to come to some sort of acceptance. I feel like I've now reached the end of a very long tunnel." And from Sadie, "Now, I don't see myself as somebody like I did at the beginning, someone in dire straits. None of it feels like people coming to help me. We do things together. It's really hard to explain. At the same time, I'm trying to do all these things to replan my life. I feel I'm bringing together my own person again, and it feels good." And some quotes from family members. From Andrea, whose mum has dementia. "I was terrified when I first heard of Mum's diagnosis, but I'm not so scared now." From John, whose wife has dementia. "Being involved with the project has changed my life. You have more time to spend than the doctor does, so could help us with benefits and sorting out power of attorney. That took away a lot of hassle and grief. Coming to the groups has opened my eyes. I've realised that you," he was referring to his wife at this point, "can still do things yourself, and it helps to speak out. and from Jess, whose husband has dementia. We would be absolutely lost if it wasn't for having the project. We wouldn't know anything, and we wouldn't know what would help or where to go for help. And that's a common comment that we get from people when they make contact with us. Just to finish off, I wanted to share with you a personal story that I think illustrates what the project can offer. So it's the story of Isabel, who's the lady in the middle of the photograph, and her daughter Zara is the lady on the left of the photograph. Isabel was referred to us shortly after receiving a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. And when I first met Isabel, she was very depressed. She felt very socially isolated. She was often tearful, and on a bad day would tell me that she'd had a good life and she no longer wanted to go on. Her daughter was feeling incredibly stressed as she was receiving lots of distressing calls from her mum day and night, and she was finding it increasingly difficult to cope. In getting to know Isabel, I come to learn that she'd always been somebody who loved being outdoors. She was a keen hill walker. She loved being in her garden, and she had travelled extensively. But due to her deteriorating mobility and the increased risk of falls, she was no longer able to go out unaccompanied, and this was definitely having a big impact on how she felt. Her sense of isolation was also compounded by her memory difficulties and her poor concept of time. So one of the first things that we did was introduce a simple memory board that Isabel used, and she had the days of the week, who she would be seeing, what she had going on, and that helped her to feel a lot more in control. Instead of feeling, I don't know when I'm next going to see somebody, she could see, tomorrow I've got a visitor coming at 11 o'clock or whatever, and that really made a huge difference to orientating Isabel to what she had going on in the week and reducing that sense of isolation. Back in December, we had a person-centred planning meeting with Isabel, our daughter Zara, and her community psychiatric nurse also attended. I know you won't be able to make much of the detail out from this, but I just wanted to show the process. The record there is recorded on a huge big piece of paper on the wall. We have one person that facilitates the meeting and somebody else that graphically records the details of what we've discussed and what we've planned. And it's quite a different way, a much more creative and positive way of helping people to think about changes that they would like to make to make their life better. So we start on the right-hand side, you'll see the word dream, and that's about what would be the ideal life if there were no restraints. What would the ideal life be like? And for Isabel, that was that she could get a new pair of legs, because that meant she could still get back outdoors and go hill walking. But obviously we couldn't give her that. So the next step is to rein some of that back in and to think about what's positive, possible, and practical. And we worked a time frame of just 6 months ahead, because Isabel felt that was more manageable for her than trying to think beyond that. We compared how life was currently in comparison to what that life would look like. And we then started to think about who would we need to enlist to help us to reach that point. And the final stages of that meeting would be then looking at the actions that would need to be taken in the coming days, weeks and months, so that by the time we got to the 6 months on in the summer, Isabel's life would be a lot better, but it would be dictated by what she wanted to happen. This is just a quote from her daughter about the meeting. She said it helped everyone to focus on what Mum wanted to do in her life, not what I or anyone else thought she should be doing. It gave Mum the opportunity to air her views and her feelings. I think it helped me to realise that although someone has dementia, they're still capable of voicing their opinion and should be listened to when deciding what support is required, now and in the future. I hadn't even heard about self-directed support and knew nothing about individual budgets or what support we were entitled to. Self-directed support allowed me to resume my role as daughter rather than solely as a carer. Isabel was a very talented painter in her life, and she'd sold lots of paintings, but in the couple of years before I met her, she'd given that up. She recognised that her style of painting had changed and she regarded it as rubbish. And although her daughter tried to motivate her to paint at home, she just couldn't find the motivation. So what we did with Isabel is we recruited an art-loving befriender, a volunteer, who had a love of art and would like to accompany Isabel to a local art class. And these are two of the paintings that Isabel produced there. I should say that she thrived at that she thrived at that group, and her daughter will say that she feels that was a big turning point for how her mum felt, because it reconnected her with something that had been a big part of her life that she was very passionate about. So just to finish off, to leave you with one final painting of Isabel's and a quote from Zara about the difference that the project made to both of them. It gave Mum back some of her will to live and let her know she was still capable of achieving things. It gave me peace of mind to know that she was happier within herself. So thank you very much for listening. My contact details are there if anybody wants to find any more information. Don't hesitate to get in touch. Thank you.